If this story touched your heart, we'd love to know. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below and let's see how far our little community of story lovers can reach. Every voice matters, and your thoughts help bring these characters to life. And don't forget, a brand new story awaits you tomorrow, full of twists, emotions, and unexpected moments. So, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single chapter. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and thank you for being part of this journey. Claire Thompson had always been the kind of woman who walked into a room with confidence, clipboard in hand, and a plan in her head. At just 28, she had already climbed the ladder to become a trusted project coordinator at a mid-sized automotive company in downtown Portland. She was organized, reliable, and focused, until one decision, one man, unraveled it all. She had fallen for her boss, David Lawrence, a charming, well-spoken manager 10 years her senior. Their relationship was kept under wraps, a secret she believed was necessary to protect both their careers. For 3 months, Claire had lived in what she thought was a fairy tale. He brought her coffee, whispered sweet promises about building a future, and made her believe she had finally found someone who saw her worth. But the fairy tale crumbled when a woman from Toronto, his real wife, showed up at the office demanding to know why her husband had been sending money to a woman named Claire. The confrontation exploded like wildfire through the workplace. Overnight, Claire became the subject of gossip, side-eyes, and hushed conversations. The HR department launched an inquiry, and even though she had no idea David was married, Claire was the one who was let go. It was humiliating. In a matter of days, she went from respected professional to scandal-ridden former employee, all because she trusted the wrong man. Jobless, broken, and watching bills pile up on the kitchen counter of the small 2-bedroom apartment she shared with her retired mother, Claire didn't know what to do next. Her mother, Rosa, had been the head housekeeper at the Kingsley estate for over 30 years. A regal 4-story property that stood proudly on the edge of Maplewood Hills, it was home to the influential Kingsley family. When Rosa announced her retirement due to health issues, the estate's matriarch, Ms. Evelyn Kingsley, invited Claire to take over her role. At first, Claire resisted. She had a degree. She had corporate experience. Becoming a live-in house manager felt like a step backward. But with no job offers and rent due, pride had to be set aside. So she packed her things, left behind the city skyline, and moved into the estate nestled among oak trees and winding gravel paths. The house was massive, over 10,000 square feet, with tall windows, spiral staircases, and the quiet hum of history in every corner. Claire didn't know then that this new chapter would change her life. That behind the polished floors and perfectly arranged roses in the foyer, something unexpected was waiting for her. Not just a fresh start, but a chance to heal, to rediscover her worth, and maybe, just maybe, to fall in love again. Claire had only been at the Kingsley estate for 2 weeks when the storm rolled in, though not the kind that shakes trees or floods roads. No, this storm came in the form of a man. And not just any man. Daniel Kingsley. The eldest son of the Kingsley family. The heir to the estate. The boy who used to torment her as a kid had now returned as a man, with shadows in his eyes, grief in his chest, and 2 young boys clinging to his side. She hadn't seen him in over 15 years, not since those endless childhood summers when her mother would bring her to the estate while she worked. Back then, Daniel had been the rich kid with too many toys and too much attitude. He teased her, pranked her, and once even dropped a frog in her lunchbox. She never forgot. She never forgave. And now, there he was, 34, over 6 feet, tall, broad-shouldered, with a jawline sharper than she remembered, and the weight of the world in his tired blue eyes. "Claire?" he said when he saw her standing in the entryway. She froze. His voice had deepened, but the way he said her name, it stirred something. Memory, surprise, maybe a little irritation. "Yes, Daniel," she answered, her voice firm but not cold. He blinked, then gave a small, almost confused smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." Likewise. The tension crackled like static between them. She soon learned that his wife had died in a car accident a year ago while driving back from the grocery store. Since then, he'd been living in Switzerland, raising their sons alone. But now, the weight of family duty had pulled him home. He wasn't just a grieving husband, he was a father trying to hold everything together. That night, Ms. Evelyn called Claire into her room. "Daniel needs help," she said gently. "The boys haven't adjusted well. He's been doing his best, but they need more. Someone kind, someone patient, someone like you." Claire's heart dropped. Babysitting wasn't part of her job description, but how could she say no? So the next morning, she knocked gently on the guest wing door. It opened to reveal a sleepy-eyed 7-year-old, Ethan, holding a stuffed dinosaur, and his 5-year-old brother Liam crouched behind him, peeking with wide, suspicious eyes. "I'm Claire," she said with a smile. "I brought pancakes." They didn't smile, but they didn't close the door either. Over the next few days, the boys slowly began to warm up. Ethan liked to draw superheroes. Liam liked mud and throwing it. It was exhausting, messy, and unpredictable. But what Claire didn't expect was that Daniel would begin to change too. He'd lean against door frames, watching her with unreadable eyes. He'd offer quiet thank yous or help dry dishes without being asked. And sometimes late at night, she'd catch him staring at her as if trying to remember the girl he used to prank and make sense of the woman she'd become. Claire didn't know what game fate was playing, but something was shifting. Something dangerous, something thrilling, and she wasn't sure if she was ready. Claire had always thought she was composed under pressure, until the day she nearly lost one of Daniel's children. It was a Saturday, the sun high and burning through the clouds like a spotlight. The boys had begged for a trip to the local park just outside the Kingsley estate, and Daniel, caught up in meetings and corporate calls, had given Claire the green light to take them. It wasn't far, maybe a half-mile walk down the hill, but enough for Ethan and Liam to feel like adventurers. First, everything went smoothly. They played tag, climbed the jungle gym, and chased butterflies through the tall grass. Claire sat under a tree, watching with a smile as they laughed freely, unburdened by the sadness of their father's grief. Then it happened. She turned her head just for a second to answer a call from the estate. When she looked back, Liam was gone. Her stomach dropped. Her heart thudded against her ribs. "Liam," she called, standing up fast. "Liam!" Ethan looked up from where he was drawing with sticks in the dirt. "He was here a second ago," he said. Panic took over. She ran across the playground, her eyes scanning every corner. Dozens of children ran and played, so many tiny bodies, all moving. But not one of them was Liam. And then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw it. Liam chasing a red balloon toward the edge of the park. Toward the road, a motorcycle roared around the bend. Without thinking, Claire sprinted. Time slowed. The balloon floated upward. Liam ran forward. The motorcycle wasn't stopping. She shoved him. The next thing she knew, the world flipped sideways. Her body slammed against the pavement. Gravel tore into her arms. A white-hot pain bloomed in her side as the bike swerved and clipped her hip before skidding off the road. Everything went silent. "Claire, Claire!" Liam's tiny voice cracked as he crawled toward her. People rushed in. Bystanders, the driver, a woman with a first aid kit. Someone called 911. Claire's vision blurred, but she stayed conscious long enough to hear Liam crying into her shoulder, whispering, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Hours later, in a sterile hospital room that smelled like rubbing alcohol and fear, Claire awoke to Daniel. He was sitting beside her bed, sleeves rolled up, hair disheveled, his phone forgotten in his lap. His eyes were red, his jaw clenched. "Tight, you could have died," he said quietly. Claire winced, adjusting slightly on the bed, but Liam didn't. He looked at her then, really looked, and something cracked in his expression. He reached for her hand. "I don't think I've ever been this terrified," he whispered. Claire didn't speak. She didn't need to, because in that moment, between the pain and the silence, something between them shifted. No longer just the woman helping with the kids, no longer just a childhood memory. She was something more, and Daniel knew it. He just didn't know how to say it, yet. Claire had never been good at running away, But this time she didn't see any other choice. 3 days had passed since the accident. The bruises on her hip had begun to fade, but the bruises in her heart lingered. Daniel had stayed by her, sighed that night at the hospital, barely sleeping, barely speaking. But the way he held her hand, the way he looked at her, it was too much. Too intense, too real, and too dangerous. She wasn't just the house manager anymore. She was someone he cared about, maybe more. And that scared her, because no matter how soft his voice became when he asked how she was feeling, or how carefully he adjusted her pillow like she was something fragile and precious, Claire couldn't forget where she came from. She wasn't a Kingsley. She wasn't a woman from his world. She was the daughter of the help, the girl who'd been publicly humiliated and fired because she fell for the wrong man once. She refused to make that mistake again. So, the moment she was discharged, she packed a small bag, left a letter on her nightstand, and disappeared before sunrise. She needed time. Time to breathe. Time to silence the pounding in her chest every time Daniel walked into the room. Time to figure out if what she was feeling was real, or just a side effect of trauma and gratitude. She returned to her childhood home. Rosa, her mother, was shocked to see her at the door. "Claire, what happened?" Claire smiled weakly. "I just need a break." But rest didn't come easily. Days passed. She tried to distract herself with chores, errands, books, but her thoughts kept returning to the boys' laughter and Daniel's eyes. She missed them, more than she wanted to admit. And then there was a knock on the door. When she opened it, she wasn't expecting what she saw: Ethan and Liam. Standing beside Andy, one of the younger maids from the estate, the two boys looked up at her with tear-stained cheeks and red noses. "Why did you leave us?" Ethan asked, clutching a crumpled drawing in his hand, Claire's face, sketched in crayon. Liam didn't say a word. He just walked up and hugged her legs like he was afraid she'd vanish again. Her heart shattered. She knelt and wrapped them both in her arms. "I missed you," she whispered. They stayed the night, curled up in her tiny bed like puzzle pieces she never realized were missing. And as she tucked them in, Ethan mumbled, "I told Dad you should be our mom." Claire's breath caught. She didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, she returned to the estate. She didn't know what she'd say to Daniel. She didn't know if he'd be angry or, worse, indifferent. But when he opened the door, standing barefoot in the hallway, eyes wide, in surprise as she saw it, he hadn't let go either, and maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to stop running. Claire didn't expect him to pull her into a hug. The moment Daniel opened the front door and saw her standing there, messy-haired and unsure, he didn't ask why she left. He didn't ask why she came back. He just wrapped his arms around her, like he'd been holding his breath for days. "You're here," he whispered, voice thick. "You came back." She nodded against his chest, not trusting herself to speak. From that day forward, something shifted. They didn't label it. They didn't rush into anything. But the tension that used to buzz with uncertainty now felt softer, warmer. Claire returned to caring for the boys, only now Daniel would join them in the kitchen, help her fold laundry, or walk beside her in the garden, his hand sometimes brushing hers, but never holding it too long. Until one night changed everything. The ball. Boys had fallen asleep early after a full day at the beach. The house was quiet. Claire stood barefoot in the kitchen, scraping leftovers into a container when Daniel entered. He didn't speak. Just walked up behind her, gently took the dish from her hands, and set it aside. "I keep thinking about the day you left," he said, voice low. "And the second I saw you come back, I knew. I can't lose you again." Her breath caught. He cupped her face with one hand, his thumb brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm not good at this," he said. "But I think about you all the time. Not just because of the boys, not just because of what you did for Liam, but because I want you." in every version of my future. And just like that, he kissed her. It wasn't rushed or messy. It was patient, careful, like he'd waited years for this moment. From that night on, there were no more games, no more fear. Weeks passed. Laughter returned to the mansion. The boys grew more attached than ever. And one sunny afternoon, as they picnicked in the rose garden, Daniel pulled out a small velvet box and got down on one knee. Claire gasped, hands flying to her mouth. "Be our forever," he said, glancing at Ethan and Liam, who both nodded eagerly. She said yes through happy tears. But fate had one more surprise in store. A month later, Claire began waking up nauseous. Her cravings turned strange. She snapped at Daniel for putting ketchup on the wrong side of her plate. It didn't take long for the truth to hit. She was pregnant. The test flashed positive. 3 times. When she told Daniel, he laughed, cried, and kissed her forehead like she was carrying the most precious treasure in the world. Even the boys cheered, Ethan whispering, "I hope it's a girl," and Liam already picking out baby names. And when baby Aria was born 2 years later, Claire stood by Daniel's side as his wife. Not just a house manager or caretaker, but the heart of their home. She once feared she'd never belong. Now she couldn't imagine belonging anywhere else. If this story stirred something in your heart, whether it was the pain of letting go, the joy of second chances, or the magic of finding love in the most unexpected place, we'd love to hear from you. What part of Claire and Daniel's journey spoke to you the most? Have you ever walked away from something, only to realize it was exactly where you belonged? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We're building a global community of story lovers, and your voice matters here. Whether you're watching from a small town or a big city, you're part of this journey. Do you believe in second chances? Could you love someone who's carrying a past, like Daniel, with his kids and his pain? Or are you more like Claire, hesitant, but full of heart? Your comment might just resonate with someone else going through the same thing. And don't forget, subscribe and turn on the bell, because tomorrow another heartfelt story awaits. One that might just reflect your own. Let's keep growing this space where stories heal and connect us.